Welcome everybody to the Flatiron School Final Project Showcase. My name is Michelle Pathé, and I am a community manager here. And I'm super excited to be leading this event, an event that we host every single month here at Flatiron School, where we get to highlight the final projects from some of our recent grads. And they really get the chance to dive deep into the work that they did and show off a little bit about what they were able to accomplish over the course of their Flatiron School programs. So we have 3 projects that we're going to be seeing across both software engineering and data science. There will be plenty of time for questions, both in between projects and at the very end. So definitely don't hold those back. I think these folks are eager to hear from you all who are watching. And quick reminder, we've got the chat open, we've got the Q&A box. Be sure to show some love to everyone who's presenting. If you have comments or you think something is interesting or cool or innovative, be sure to let us know. All that kind of fun stuff is very much welcome here at our final project showcase. Before we get started, I just want to make sure I have the screen share settings all ready to go for y'all. And I think we are set. So with that, I am going to invite one of our data scientists up first. We've got Allison Ward, who is presenting her project Through the Ages, Song Popularity Classification Over Time. Allison, you ready?
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
Great. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, looks good.
Thank you so much. Okay, so like Michelle said, my name's Allison. Thank you all for coming. And my project is Through the Ages, Song Popularity Classification Over Time. And before we get any further, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I am a data scientist and a musician. I have been playing music since I was a kid, and in 2021, I started releasing my own original music on all the major streaming platforms. When it came time to pick our topics for our capstone projects, I told all the people in my life, and not a single person was surprised at the topic that I chose. Before enrolling in this course, my background was in healthcare and nonprofit administration. I've always been interested in data, and I've always been interested in figuring out why things are the way that they are. I find myself looking at my Spotify analytics daily just because I think it's really interesting. So when I realized that I could take my interests and turn them into a career, I jumped at the opportunity. I've loved my experience as a data scientist so far, and I'm eager to see what comes next. So to give you an overview of what we'll discuss today, I'll introduce you to the data set. We'll look at an analysis of music trends over time, discuss the classification system, look at future trends, and lastly, I'll demo the interactive dashboard I made, and we'll have closing remarks. So what is the bottom line from the analysis? Whitney Houston said it best, "I want to dance with somebody." People gravitate towards danceable songs in major keys with lyrics. This analysis was geared towards a streaming service who is seeking to classify song popularity. The more popular a song, the more frequently a streaming app can suggest it to users, knowing it will be generally well received. Why is this important? For a streaming service, the goal is to provide the best possible listening experience for the user. Recommending songs that are popular will likely increase listening time and user satisfaction within the app. The dataset used for the analysis contains over 170,000 Spotify songs of all genres, spanning release years from 1921 to 2020. They each include quantified audio features, which I'll explain in the next slide. There is a limitation to the data set. Popularity might be biased, as it was unclear how this measure was quantified, but it was likely a combination of number of streams or number of playlist ads. Additionally, not all the songs in the data set had a popularity score. Therefore, songs with no ratings were not used in the analysis. So what are a few of the audio features that were included in the data set? I'll single out a few. Acousticness. A higher score of this indicates more acoustic instruments present in contrast to electronic sounds. Danceability describes how suitable a track is for dancing. I think Whitney Houston would love that one. Energy. Typically, energetic tracks feel fast, loud, and noisy. For example, death metal has high energy, while a Bach prelude scores low on the scale. We have information on whether or not a song contains explicit lyrics. Instrumentalness predicts whether or not a track contains vocals, and mode tells us whether a song is derived from a major or minor scale. And now let's move into our analysis. What insights can we gain from the data? Let's look at a few of these features over time. In the 1920s, the acousticness measure remained high for several decades, seen here as the dark blue line at the top. However, there is a significant drop-off in the 60s where a new feature will take over. Zooming in, we can see that the 60s brought about a significant change in music. Acoustic instruments plummet while the energy of songs increases. And specifically, this swap occurs in 1968. Therefore, for our classification model, data from 1968 onward was used to predict trends in popular music today. Interestingly, our data set was skewed, meaning it leans towards one side. Most songs in the data set had a low popularity rating, and only one song had a score of 100. And I know you're curious as to what that one song was. It was a song by Bad Bunny. The median score of all the songs was 38. Therefore, songs ranked as 38 or higher were considered popular. One of the models used in the data determines feature importance, meaning it tells us what qualities of a song contribute most to its popularity. After 1968, our model found that the 5 most important features of a song are instrumentalness, key, mode, danceability, and whether or not a song is explicit. Looking more closely at each one, let's start with instrumentalness. The average instrumentalness score is a mere 9%, dropping sharply in 2019 to about 2%, meaning that almost all popular songs were found to contain lyrics. Next, looking at keys, C, G, D, and A are the most popular keys. And if you're not a musician, that might not mean much to you, but if you're interested, G is the easiest key to play on guitar, and it's the key that most guitarists learn to play first. And C is the easiest key for pianists, as there are no sharps or flats. As far as modality, 70% of popular songs are written in a major key. Major keys generally sound happier, and minor keys generally sound more subdued. And here, we can see that while the total number of explicit songs released skyrocketed in the 80s, 85% of popular songs today are in fact clean. Lastly, danceability has remained consistently high in songs since 1968, peaking in recent decades with an average score of about 60%. So what are the key recommendations for a streaming service seeking to introduce popular songs to listeners? Most popular songs are in major keys. C, G, D, and A are the most common keys. You should try to avoid explicit lyrics. Songs with high danceability will likely persist in popularity, and people gravitate towards songs with lyrics. And looking towards the future, time series analysis tells us that instrumentalness will likely stay close to 0 and danceability will remain high. Taking our analysis further, a future line of inquiry includes isolating specific genres, such as rock, jazz, alternative, etc., and analyzing audio features for each. And I've also created an interactive Tableau dashboard I'll go ahead and show. And this is available for anyone. It's on Tableau Public. And I can put the link in the chat after the presentation. But if you're interested, every visualization from my slideshow is in this dashboard. And you can also hover over specific elements. So for example, if you wanted to find the acousticness in 1975, here you'll see about 43% was the average instrument or acousticness for songs released in 1975. And if you scroll down, I also included some explanations if you hover over different areas. So for energy, it has the explanation, similar with instrumentalness. And you can explore this on your own if you're interested. So I'm very excited to answer any questions you have, and I thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. That was so fun, Allison. Thanks for walking us through that. I love how, and this is something we see a lot from people who come through Flatiron School, which I love, which is, we have so many people coming into this without, who are changing careers, who come from a non-technical background. And you know, as a musician, you said, okay, I'm gonna take my two passions, my, you know, my pre-Flatiron passion and my new passion, I'm gonna put them together and create something fun. Did you kind of know going into this experience that you would maybe lean on some of your other experiences to build your capstone project? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't think about it initially. I had previously worked in, like I mentioned, healthcare sector as well. So at first I was thinking, oh, I should probably do something related to healthcare. But I actually, Spotify provides analytics to me as an artist. So I was looking at data sets to use to practice some of the skills. And I said, oh, why don't I just use my own data? And then it just kind of became my capstone project after a while. So yeah, it wasn't my initial thought, but I'm really happy that it ended up that way.
Yeah. Um, during your process of actually first, could you share with maybe we have some folks who are watching who maybe this is their first time coming to a showcase or they're just learning about Flatiron School. Could you just talk through like how long you had to complete this project and kind of like as a student, what were the steps that you had to take?
Yeah, so the data science course specifically is broken up into 5 phases, they call it. And so the first 4 are all learning content, but the last phase is entirely devoted to the capstone project. And so I had 3 full weeks, not really 3 full weeks, it was like 2.5 if you count. Um, we had to still present it and upload it and things. So about 2.5 weeks to work on this project specifically.
Cool. Um, what, could you talk a little bit about the models that you used?
Yes, I tried 3 different classification models. I did a logistic regression, a decision tree classifier, and an XGBoost. And if you're interested, the one that actually did the best was the logistic regression. I was thinking the XGBoost being an ensemble method would do the best, but the logistic regression did very good. But
Cool.
that decision tree is how I got those 5 key features that contribute to song popularity, if you're interested.
Nice. Let's see, we got a question from Alexander. Curious to know what were your biggest obstacles in completing this project and how did you overcome them?
That's a great question. I had a lot of obstacles. um, I had started out with a totally different data set. I knew I wanted to do something related to music because I had been practicing with my own data. But the first data set I used, I spent probably 5 whole days trying to figure out how to work with it, and I came to realize it was incomplete. I think I was scouring the internet. There was something that wasn't publicly available anymore. So I did have to pivot. I talked to my teacher and I said, look, I've been working really hard with this one. I don't think it's what I'm trying to do will be possible. And my teacher helped me brainstorm and find another data set that was similar to what I wanted to do. So I think that was a huge obstacle, but I just communicated with my teacher early on and walked her through my process, and she was very helpful in helping me come up with a solution.
Beautiful. And then got one more question from Caleb, who is dying to know, do you remember which Bad Bunny song hit 100%?
Oh my gosh. I know I looked it up because I also was so curious. Let me find it. It's in the data. I can put it in the chat. I
We'll
think it
throw it
started
into
with
the
a
chat.
J. Yeah. Good question.
We're dying to know. We're dying to know. Awesome. Well, folks, if you have any other questions for Allison, be sure to throw them into the Q&A. And Allison, as you're heading out, would you mind just dropping into the chat how folks can connect with you, get in touch, just in case they have any follow-up questions?
Yes, definitely. I'll put my LinkedIn and also that Tableau link if people want to explore the dashboard.
Great. Anything you got for us? We'd love to see it.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle.
Of course. All right, y'all. Give it up for Allison one more time in the chat. Throw some emojis in there for Give her a little round of applause. We love to see it. Going first is hard. Going first is hard.
Thank you. It's nice to get it out of the way, though.
All right. Thank you so much again, Allison. We're going to be switching things up for presenter number 2. We're going to be hearing from one of our software engineering grads next. We have got Caleb Samuel joining us from Denver, presenting his project, Thrive on a Dime. Caleb, it's all you.
Hello, thank you. How you guys doing today? My name is Caleb Samuel. Sorry, I'm gonna have to quit and reopen to do screen sharing. Give me one moment.
Classic.
Sorry.
No worries. We'll give Caleb a moment to jump back on. Beauty of Zoom. All right, and while we're waiting, we do have Allison's LinkedIn in the chat.
Hello. Okay.
All right.
Hello, y'all. Welcome to my name is Caleb Samuel, and I'm gonna be presenting Thrive on a Dime. So before I start, I'm just going to show you the website. I went to Boulder Startup Week, and I was actually able to learn about it through Flatiron. And it's a convention that happens in Boulder with startups. And I was actually able to meet the startup founder, and this is her website. So she had said that she had wanted to build a coding prototype of this app that essentially lets you sign up, get matched with the coach, get feedback, and get coaching. Essentially similar to BetterHelp. So with that information, what I did was I built her an app. So I used the app as like a prototype for my capstone project, so I could do two birds, one stone. So summary, I partnered with the founder / client and we created a sprint prototype of your life coach application, Thrive on a Dime. And yeah, you're supposed to have about 2.5 weeks to work on this project. I initially only had 2 because I spent the first 3 going to startup week, and our teachers encouraged it, and it was actually a really great experience. So just keep that in mind. It was a little bit quicker of a sprint. But yeah, so I will show you a live prototype of the app right now. So let me just, yep. So first thing you do is you sign up. So I'll be new user 23, and then I'll type in new user 23 at gmail.com. And my password will be 1234567. Please don't take my password. And then we'll sign up. And this questionnaire is and then it will start a questionnaire. So this questionnaire will initially ask, it will be 25 questions in the final one. But basically, it has some stuff running in the back end so that it's like dynamically loading. So if you answer a question a certain way, you'll get a certain answer. For the demo, it's just by default just one question, but I just want to kind of let you know. You can see the backend for the code right here for the answers. And then once you complete your questionnaire, then you get a cool little pop-up, and then you enter the user hub. And so if we click continue, you can either talk to an AI coach immediately, or you can schedule a one-on-one with the coach. So if we click on talk to coach, we get essentially an AI coach that you can speak to. So let's say I ask it, what is the meaning of life? Question mark. If you click send, it will load up and then it will give you an answer. There's no single universally agreed upon meaning of life. The question of meaning of life is, and you can just keep asking it more questions like, hey, I was born in May. What is my sign? Question mark. And then it will say my zodiac is a Taurus. Yeah. And then if you click on this one, you can do schedule with the coach. And then it's basically just like a programmer, so you can book appointments. It's still pretty rough. It's going to take a little bit more time to build out the scheduler, But as I said, this was just a prototype, like a sprint, something that we could just have a proof of concept. And yeah, and so if I go back to the presentation, got the questionnaire, a results screen, the user hub, the ability to talk to a coach, the scheduler. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And that is the sprint prototype of Thrive on a Dime for my client.
Awesome. Well done, Caleb. Give it up for Caleb, y'all. Give it up for Caleb in the chat. So cool that you chose to kind of build your final project off of a real life kind of experience that you had. Could you maybe explain a little bit further why you chose to go that route versus maybe coming up with something else?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to build a different app, and I'd actually already started. But I didn't, Laura, her name is Laura, and like, if you go on my LinkedIn, you can find her and more about the company. But I found her in a speed mentoring mingle offered by Boulder Startup Week. And I just wanted to get experience. I'd watched some YouTube videos that said if you use your capstone project and work with a startup, then that's like a really good way of doing like two birds, one stone, getting experience. So Laura reached out to me on a Wednesday, like in the middle of project week, and she was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to like work on my app." And I was like, "Seems like a great opportunity." So even though it wasn't really something that I initially had like interest in, I wasn't like, "Oh yeah, I want to build the scheduler. I want to build this thing." I was just like, "Man, like this is a really good opportunity to do something that is like real life, like real world." And I learned a lot. Like, I usually did everything that I wanted to do. And it really is a skill to like communicate with your client, make sure, someone that doesn't have a technical background understands the limitations of what a developer can do. And yeah.
Awesome. Got a couple of questions coming up in the chat for you, Caleb. Alexander wants to know, what was your level of programming experience before entering this program?
So I was always into tech, but never really into coding. Like I knew how to code some like HTML, but that was like as far as I'd done. When I started, there was a big learning curve. Like I was like, whoa, like I can't lie, I didn't think I would pass. There were a few phases I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready for this, if this is me. But the best thing you could do is just do it. And so because I like just did it every day, I saw the small growth. So that's how I grew on the process, just by doing it. And how do I feel about my skills now? I feel confident that I can reach a certain standard. Like I'm not the best programmer. I honestly think I always say this joke. I'm like, I'm probably the worst programmer in my class. But like it just comes with time, like as time goes, this is a new skill. There's a lot of depth to it. So I just feel ready to learn, and I'm just learning as much as I can. So yeah.
Awesome. Um, let's see, we got a question from Mateus. What language learning or AI agent is the virtual coach based on or built on top of? Was it easy? Was it difficult to incorporate it into your MVP?
Yeah, that's a great question. I used Claude AI. If you sign up for it, you actually get $5 free, like free tokens to use for API. So here, I'll put it in the chat. And it was actually super simple. One of my classmates in school, he actually put um, the language learning model into his website, and oh sorry, into his website, and I had asked him, I was like, bro, how did you do it? And he was like, it was just the API. Like, it's actually so simple. Like, in fact, for this project, the scheduler was the main thing that the client wanted. But because of the time, like, because of the limited time of the project, like, I realized the scope of it would be too large to do by the capstone project. So I actually used the language learning model, the AI bot, as like compromise to like, okay, like people can know you have a scheduler, but that might not be what sells them. But if we're making a prototype for like, something you want to show people, it's like having that language learning model just goes so far.
Awesome. Were there, as you were kind of getting into this project, were there any kind of unexpected hiccups or bugs or things that you really had to take some time and scratch your head on? And how kind of did you mitigate that?
Yeah, so we had to use a new technology to do the project, and yeah, we had to use a new technology, and I used I didn't know you could use like plugins and stuff or like frameworks. So sorry, one second. Sorry. The hardest part was using React Native. I used React Native, which is a framework that you use for like building mobile apps. And I didn't know how difficult it would be. So it took like maybe 5 days of just like working with this new language to get it to like an MVP, which if I would have used like normal React, it would have taken like 1 day. But that was also a cool learning curve because I got to build iOS apps, and like I feel like that's also like more flashy. Like yo, look at this. Like, so yep.
Awesome. Well, if anyone has any other questions for Caleb, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. And then Caleb will also be sure to drop his contact information into the chat in case y'all have any follow-up questions for him. But we have one more presentation to get to. Want to make sure we have plenty of time for that. And we're going to be jumping back over to data science land. I've got Alina Rinkova here with us, who is going to be presenting her project, Predicting Health Disparity. Alina, take it away.
Hey, let me just find my screen. Okay, so my name is Alina Rinkova. I'm calling in from Brooklyn. I completed the data science program and will be predicting health disparity in the United States. So we have our little agenda, our business objective, some information about the actual data used, the modeling, results of our modeling, and future improvements to the project, as well as contact information. So I have been in healthcare and medicine. That's where I've grown up, but I mainly just care about progressing our society towards a more equitable future, and with that comes closing care gaps. It's pretty well known that healthcare and other public health fields are notoriously behind in technical advancements, but in recent years, it's really great to see more companies and institutions specializing in public health that are leaning on data and technology to inform business decisions. So this project aims to identify overall holistic health disparity across the United States by defining a health disparity index to help direct business opportunities and close much needed care gaps at the same time. I am a big proponent of a win-win in business. So as far as our data, it came from the CDC places and SDOH data spanning 2017 to 2021. We had around total around like 800,000 rows together. It included health measures and categories for counties in the US. And then you see those are the health measures down there: SDOH, health outcomes, prevention, health risk behaviors, health status, and disabilities. I did have to take away columns with too much missingness. Columns not present in SDOH were dropped also. Then there was also some misspelling that occurred. So for example, geolocation was misspelled as well as measure ID. So those were combined. And there was a proper pre-split transformation applied. So before we split up the data, we transformed certain features ahead of time. And then features with either duplicated or unnecessary information were also dropped. So just looking at some of our features, we have the state two-letter abbreviation, the county name, which is the location name, the location ID, which is the county unique identifier, total population in the county. Then we have the measure group, which is called the category. So that's the SDOH, health outcomes, prevention, health risk behaviors, health status. And then within the category, there were also the actual measure, and we kept the short answer text because it was a little bit easier to interpret. And then we had data type value, which is the percentage aggregation type. So there's age prevalence, crude prevalence, and percentage. And all of those had a data value, which is the percentage of the measure, depending on the data value type. And that'll come into relevance when we're defining the health disparity index in the first place. So as far as statistical analysis, outliers were dropped using interquartile range, data value, and total population are the two features where this was relevant. And then the data was also normalized using robust scalar to keep consistent with the statistical analysis of the interquartile range. So finally coming to our data disparity index. So all of these scaled values were then aggregated by geolocation and data value type. And then a weight was added by population. So all aggregation was done on a record level, on a row level, so that each scaled value was aggregated based on the record's health measure and data value type. So the crude prevalence, the age prevalence, and just the regular prevalence, so that it's all kept in alignment. And then the population weight was added at the end. And that's where we see a geographical distinction kind of start to form. And that would kind of make sense if you think about urban versus rural areas. And we see that furthermore when we map the geolocation for total population and the index. You kind of start to see that the higher the population, the lower the health disparity index. So parts of the West Coast, you see that demonstrated this like inverse relationship. Florida seems to be that exception. And all of this also makes sense, right? The higher the population, the greater access to care, diversity of services, public health funding in areas where there's more population density, and so on. So as we get into our modeling, I started out with a basic linear regression, which did awful. So as we move on, all of the models were cross-validated and hyperparameter tuned using randomized search CV. There was also an option to use GP minimize, but just out of time constraints and everything else, randomized search CV was used on all of these. So adding some with the lasso, we see that the numbers are definitely better than our base model with like the straight up linear regression. Then if you compare the lasso versus the ridge wins out when we look at our scores. Next, I tried a random forest, and our ridge is still better than the random forest. Then I tried a voting regressor. The ridge is still won out. And then finally, I tried a stacking regressor, and the stacking did ever so slightly better than the ridge. So that was the final model that I went with. And here's our final scores. And the deployment I did after I had already finished my project, but I did finally get to that point. And I used Streamlit to make the app, and I preloaded it. So there was, oh wait, I think the prediction still needs to happen. Basically, you can select the state and you can select one or multiple counties and press predict, and it's going to do a little running man. And it gets you the average health disparity index. If you only selected one, obviously it would just be the health disparity index for that county. And here's some more details with the table that I provided. It shows you our county category. The short answer text is what I was describing before. There are the categories are the general measures, and then it breaks it down further. And we have total population and the weighted index. And then if you want to reference what these measures actually mean, here's a little dictionary. So for example, obesity short answer text is obesity among adults aged 18 years or older. And then there's also a little graph, a little graph map to show you where in the US these counties are. So here we have Arizona, and here are the two counties within it. So looking ahead, we definitely want to train on the larger data sets, expand the hyperparameter tuning, because our scores weren't the best, and there was a time constraint, and obviously just computer hardware constraints and so on. Also want to do a deeper geolocation analysis, explore the spatial relationships since that information was provided in the data. May also want to look up the SDOH measures by year because it was provided as a range. So the year column had to be dropped entirely because a range can't be used in a numeric column like that. And then also just upscale the deployment, include more interactive visuals, deeper analysis, and so on. So that's me, and I guess now I can look at the chat.
Awesome. Way to go, Lena. That was so
Yeah.
cool. I always think the data science projects are so fascinating just because they truly, data is everywhere, right? You could really choose 1,000,001 different topics and different routes to take. I'm curious to know, was there anything as you were working on this, anything surprise you about the results of your project where you were like, oh, I didn't think that's where this was going to be going?
Well, at first I was kind of surprised. Like at first I saw, like, before really thinking about it, looking at the Florida region, and that it was like outside of what the general trend looked like. But then you remember that it's Florida, and it doesn't necessarily follow the typical trends across the United States. So, but it would be interesting to not only go off that hypothesis, but look into other data within that region to kind of confirm it.
Cool. Very cool. Caleb was curious to, I think Caleb's curious about these data science projects, being a software engineering student. What were kind of the biggest challenges that you experienced in this capstone?
I ran into a lot of issues. I did want to do a neural network, but the cross-validation, the way that, because I made a class for it, it wasn't running the way that I would expect. And that presented a difficulty. I was also very set on deploying prior to presenting, but deployment proved to be harder than expected also. Not necessary for data science, to be honest, but I was very interested in kind of seeing it come to life. And it was a good experience. And the data set with data science in general, with our personal computers, large data sets are really difficult to work with because you can't use the entire thing. It would take days to run one model. And I think that impacted the way that my scores came out. So I had to really break it down, and I couldn't really see what the actual results would have been like because of those computational limitations.
Well, Allison's in the chat sharing your misery there.
Yeah, the large data sets are tough. But it's also like working with big data is a big thing. So it's
Yeah.
worthwhile to understand how you would go about getting meaningful results within a sample.
Definitely. Awesome. So I think that wraps up our presentations. We do have about 10 minutes left for the showcase. So I'm going to ask Caleb and Allison if y'all are able to hop back on here.
I'm just
There we
gonna drop
are.
my LinkedIn and
Yeah.
then my little link tree that I made.
Awesome. Thanks, Alina. All right, so I like to use whatever time we typically have left during the showcase to kind of like open up the door for any other questions that folks have. I think I saw a couple of folks who were maybe considering doing a program like this, or maybe like very early on in their career change. So if you do have any more specific questions for our presenters, be sure to jump into either the chat or the Q&A. But I always come with some questions prepared in my back pocket. So no need to worry about that. I would love to know, kind of being on the other side of things now, having graduated and completed the boot camp, what is maybe one thing you wish you knew before starting this whole process? You can go back in time. Alina's got a word.
Start networking.
Start networking. Why is that?
Because more often than not, you're looking to make connections for the future.
Yeah.
So just start expanding your network. Without any, start meeting, picking people's brains. You're not looking for a job, you're looking to connect. That would be my one advice, like just from the get-go.
Yeah, and I feel like especially a lot of people, the thought of networking, especially in a new industry, is probably very intimidating. So why not do it several months before you're even looking for a job, where it's like low stakes? You're just looking to meet interesting people who maybe have a job that you want to learn more about. I feel like
It's also way more fun when you do it authentically.
Yeah.
I was so against it for so long because it felt disingenuous. But when you're genuinely curious about what the person does, it makes the conversation, it's just a conversation, and then it's an actual connection that you can call upon next time, when you need, and obviously return the favor if it ever is relevant, but just stay true, and it'll flow.
Totally. Allison, Caleb, anything you wish you knew before you started this whole thing?
Yeah, definitely. When I first started, I was using a lot of AI, and I still use a lot of AI, but it wasn't until the first phase that I got into the technical interview that I was like, Oh man, like okay, like I gotta like deconstruct. It's kind of like the autopilot of a plane. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have a solid understanding of the tools there, then it's less effective. So I think it was like my first. We have 5 phases too, and the first phase, the technical interviews are based off of like coding interviews that you would have in real life. And after the first one, I was like, oh man, okay, like you know what I mean? Like I was just made sure that I was like, if I ever used I would do it with first having that the basic understanding and concepts of like the languages that I'm using. So that's advice I would give.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I would echo what both of you have said. I didn't realize before starting this program, LinkedIn in the tech world is very, very big. Like in my previous industries, I had never touched my LinkedIn in my life. And then getting into tech, I didn't realize how much people communicate through that, especially in the tech world. I have a friend who a recruiter reached out to him on his LinkedIn and was like, hey, I think you would fit this role. Would you be interested in interviewing? So yeah, just echoing that. And yeah, I think using your resources like AI sparingly. I actually at first I was actually very against using any AI to help me. I did end up starting to use it and it ended up being very helpful. But there is that balance of you it's a tool, but nothing could ever replace us actually understanding how to write the code and what it does. But yeah, I think both of those points I would echo.
Awesome. Let's see. Any, this is a slightly different than advice, but just any general tips for maybe someone who is starting their program next week or soon, for any new folks out there? About doing the program itself.
Just do your best. Honestly. Like that's honestly the best you could do because like it seems intimidating and it's daunting at first, and especially if you're going into like I'll say it's like the software programming engineer like course. It was like, man, like I would see some people that were a couple phases ahead, and I'm like, bro, that looks like alien. Like it doesn't even look readable, you know. But I found myself going into phase 5 and being like, oh dang, like I'm reading alien right now. Like this is crazy. So, yeah, just like doing your best.
Yeah. Don't compare yourself to other people either.
Yeah, everyone has different goals too, for after. So just focus on your story. And yeah, like Caleb said, just do. It's daunting to start. Um, but you just have to like put your blinders on.
Yeah, I think I'd also add, I found it very valuable to like ask questions to my peers too. And I think my teacher did a great job of facilitating within our cohort, like feeling comfortable working with each other and asking each other questions. And we really became like a little family. And, I feel comfortable asking any of them for advice because we all had different strengths. And so many of us had come from different careers and life experiences and phases of life. So I think you're definitely not an island, and really being able to rely on your classmates I think is very helpful, even if it's just to like lament together about how hard it is. Like having your team with you, of your classmates is really helpful.
Yeah, I do want to add on to that because I don't think my cohort really had that and I missed it. Like that camaraderie is really important.
Don't be afraid to reach out.
100%. Like I did the in-person one in Denver, and like me and my cohort got like really close. Like we would hang out outside of like school, like on the weekends and stuff. And like it was just really cool to be like, man, like, you know, there would be times where I would be stuck and then I'd see something that one of my classmates did, and I'd be like, well, like it inspired the chat box for me. Like my homie was experimenting with AI and like putting it into his code. And it seemed like the craziest thing ever. But he was like, oh no, it's pretty simple. I just like did this. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that too. And like we would just like share tips with each other. So for real, like it helps to like have that sense of community if you can.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people kind of start off and it can definitely be intimidating, and you see one person who's a little ahead of you and you think, oh, I'm miles behind. I don't want to ask a question or ask for help. And then after maybe a couple of weeks, you start talking to everyone and you realize like, oh, we all feel that way. No need to shy away from talking to each other and getting to know each other and asking for help every once in a while.
And just ask questions during,
Yeah.
like, if you are doing like the classes and stuff, like just do it. Like sometimes I felt a little silly asking the questions that I did, but then people would be like nodding, like people have the same questions, even if they don't say it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is a wrap. In case folks missed it in the chat, I reshared everyone's oh, Kellen asked if there is tutoring. So you have an assigned instructor who teaches you the technical material in the program, and then as a student, you're also assigned an advisor that is kind of the non-technical support that you can meet with on a regular basis. And then we also have some kind of like live chat support through some like part-time, we don't call them tutors, we call them coaches, but so there is kind of this rounded support system where you're able to kind of get the information and the help and the support that you need. So all right. I was going to say we have our LinkedIn's in the chat. Be sure to grab those before you head out. I also dropped a link to the events page on our website where you can find other events like the Final Project Showcase. We'd love to see you at another one in the future. And with that, I hope everyone has an awesome evening. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.